Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. Today, or AKA, I forgot to do my aliases, Philip Wilkerson, AKA the Prince of Positivity, AKA Ill Phil, AKA the Illest, AKA I have a tattoo of Austin, Texas on my leg. And I'm joined by a very special guest. You may have remembered this guest previously in another episode of the podcast. This person from the podcast was Jeff, and he's my father-in-law. But the last time we had Jeff on the podcast was way back in September 2017, episode 15, I believe, of my podcast. So a lot has changed. But welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Well, I was glad to be back. I'm sorry I had to wait to be number 15. I should have been number 1, but I'm glad to be here now.
Yeah. So. As a recap, I remember the last episode that we had together. It was about meaningful work, so we call this Meaningful Work 2. And you shared your career journey and what you found gave you purpose in your work and how you balance being a father and raising 2 wonderful young ladies who, one became my wife. So now just bringing a recap about that. For the listeners that didn't listen to episode number 15, can you just give them a quick overview of your career?
Well, I just turned 70, and I worked for many years in the nonprofit world doing advocacy around issues affecting children and families, from hunger issues to health care to education, range of broad issues, and had a wonderful career working in national organizations trying to make positive change in public policies affecting low-income children and families.
Yeah, so that was, I think you found a lot of your purpose in work in serving others and trying to make this world a better place through systematic change on a macro level. But this is 2019. The episode was 2017. So a lot has changed. Can you give the listeners a little recap? What has changed in those 2 years?
Well, after 45 years of working pretty much full-time without really any breaks, I guess I started working in junior high school and worked through high school and college and ever since then. And I retired about 6 months ago, and that's been a big change in my life. Figuring that work had been such an important element in my life, I've been kind of nervous about retiring, but other than financial anxieties, which I think most of us who are not rich have, it's been quite an interesting experience, and so that's been the big change. I'm retired and have a lot more time to do things other than work.
Yeah, so shout out to you for retiring. Shout out to your wonderful career. Shout out to you also for turning 70, quite a milestone. And also with that, we went to your party. It was just amazing to see how many family and friends supporting you, and then also particularly your colleagues. So you definitely, over those years, 40 plus years of working. No, you said 40, was it 50 years? 40 years.
45.
45 years of working, you've made some lifetime friends, which is what I, look forward to more about regardless of the job, is making meaningful connections with my colleagues. But, kind of talking about going back, not going back, but just, a lot of people find a lot of their purpose and what they want to do linked to a career. So what has been some driving motivators now that you don't have that career thing to motivate you? What are some things in retirement life, even if it's just relatively new in 6 months, that get you, motivated for the day?
Well, the biggest thing that concerned me was that my work life and my colleagues in work and the network of people around the country that I worked with and being part of the progressive community really was very important to me, and it was kind of the way I connected to people. I don't participate in any organized religion, or I'm not a big person in clubs or gangs or whatever.
Gangs.
So my work life was really, that was the way I connected to the world, and so I was worried about that. And so I'm trying to find ways in retirement to keep connected to that, and so I am doing some work with a local social service agency. I'm keeping my connections with various organizations. I'm on a mental health advisory group. I'll be doing some volunteer things like that. I also took a course at George Mason, where you are, and not only was the course, I took a jazz course, so not only was it just so much fun to be in a class and not have to do anything. I didn't have any papers or exams, and if I didn't show up, nobody cared. And I got to have lunch with you regularly, and so that was a really good thing. I anticipate doing that again. And I'm seeing friends and having lunch with people and things like that, doing more reading, working out more regularly. But the thing that I find most intriguing about it is that I don't miss working at all. I mean,
you don't miss task. I
just don't miss it at all. This whole level of stress has been removed from my life.
Yeah.
And my friends will talk about what they're doing, and my only reaction is to be glad I'm not doing it.
Right.
So I'm just thrilled with being, with not working, and then over time I will figure out how to make the most of this next phase of life. But I'm not feeling any great pressure to have to figure it all out right away. I'll continue to take course or two. I will volunteer in ways that I find meaningful. I'll do more reading. I'll spend more time with you and your sons, and I'll do maybe a little bit more traveling. But it's just great being retired, and I'm excited about it and looking forward to it.
So what I heard a lot, and this is what I've learned in this happiness course, is that there's a lot of link to well-being, mental well-being, through social connection. So I think one of the main things that I've heard throughout all your things that you're doing is that while I'm not in this organized structure of an employment, I'm definitely still maintaining social connections and relationships, whether it's new relationships through volunteering or going to classes or catching up with friends. Do you think, in a sense, when you say I don't miss work, that is because you have such a good skill at maintaining social connection? Is that what's keeping you pretty, feeling good about what's going on?
Well, I'm sure that helps. I mean, I've always cared a lot about friends, and very much like you, Philip, I'm aggressive in maintaining relationships and reaching out to people, and so I'm good at that, and I don't mind that people wait for me to reach out to them, but that's normally the way it works. But as nice as that is, there's still a value to me in the fact that I'm just not working. I'm not commuting, which is a big deal.
Yes.
And I don't have the stress. As much as I liked work and I liked what I was doing and I liked the meaning of what I was doing, there was still stress. You still had deadlines and people counting on you, and people who were not doing their work well that you had to deal with, or things that you didn't do well that you felt badly about. There was always a lot of different deadlines and people reaching you and taking time off and things like that. Now I don't have any of that now. Nobody tries to call me. I mean, nobody. I really I look at my email, and all I do is get Land's End notices. It's just a very different thing, and so there is a part of me that feels like I'm missing out or I'm being forgotten, and that is certainly true.
The FOMO sense.
Yeah, I get some of that, but overwhelmingly, I'm just glad that I'm just not having that pressure. Yeah.
So, what parts make you feel like you're, like you said, you just say briefly, what things make you feel like you're missing out? Like, for instance, there's been a lot of articles linked to social media making people feel like they miss out because, before social media, you wouldn't see what people are doing. So you'd just be in your own lane. You really wouldn't know what's going on. But now if you look on your news feed and you see people getting together, having lunch and sharing pictures, you're like, dang, I'm not doing that. But you just briefly said about it, like you do get a sense of missing out. What parts do you feel like you're missing out of?
Well, I don't get the pleasure out of winning something that a policy change for children and families. I don't get the chance to be part of a team that has some success. I don't get to talk to people in the office or in the kitchen or in the hallways. I miss that social interaction. So I do miss being around more people regularly. People I liked. I always liked the people I worked with. So I miss that. I miss the fact that I'm, contributing more aggressively to making change and fighting back against the Trump administration and the awful public policies that are floating around now. I miss that. But, it's all a matter of trade-offs. Life is basically trade-offs. And the trade-off of being retired I find to be an acceptable trade-off, and I'm on balance happy about it. And more of my friends will be retiring, and so there'll be a lot of us. One of the things that I'm working on, one of the ideas I've been promoting is a national program of mentorship that will connect people like me to younger people or other people who are looking for mentors or coaches or speakers or trying to get advice about an issue or an advice about management or an advice about supervision or whatever it may, fundraising or so I as I was looking to keep my hand in, I figured there's hundreds of people like me. So is there a way to have kind of a Match.com kind of process for mentorship?
A professional match.
Right. So I'm working on that, and some others are interested in it. I'm trying to promote that idea, and that might be an interesting thing. I would enjoy seeing that come to fruition, and I would be on the advisory board for that. So I'm trying to keep my hand in some way and use the experience I've had in a productive way.
Well, I think that's dope. Unofficially, you unofficially have mentored me, and definitely given me some really good advice. Not like you stopped, you still continuously do. And I think that quite honestly, one of the things that has really helped me propel my career is mentorship and different pockets.
Well, I have a self-interest in you being very successful.
yeah, for sure, right? And so I think that'd be great because I think there is a lot to gain from the generation ahead of us in regards to work ethic. I feel like I'm in this middle generation. I'm not quite a millennial, but not quite a baby boomer. But technically, when you look at the Google, they say I'm a millennial. But I think there's a lot to gain.
You seem like a millennial to me.
I don't know. They say that. They say that, but I don't think I have they say the sense of entitlement or I don't know. There's certain things of a millennial culture that
you don't have to own all the characteristics, but clearly you're of that generation.
You think so?
And you're going to have to you're facing the challenges that millennials are facing, especially in terms of the economy and jobs and houses and kids and childcare, all those kind of challenges you're facing, and that's that bonds you to a generation that are facing similar challenges, and hopefully we can figure out public policies that speak to those challenges and try to figure out ways to at least move forward for the future.
Yeah, I was only saying that there's things about the generation above me that I think obviously there's pros and cons to everything, but I think there's things to be gained about work ethic and values and how you approach work that I think millennials can gain from mentorship such as your program, and then vice versa, I think that what I've come to learn when I've reached out to older alphas or people that are mentors to me, while I learned so much from them, I have a responsibility to share cool stuff that I learned, technology stuff or new apps, or just figured out how to do these podcasts and things like that. And so I think that it's almost like a good partnership,
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we can both learn. I think the challenge is for our generation, baby boomers, to not feel like we know everything, and just sit down with me, Philip, and I'll tell you the right way to do things. And to recognize that we made our own mistakes, and there are a lot of things we could have done differently, and trying to learn from that, and and to try to figure out how you might be able to learn from that as you approach your work life or your parenting or whatever, and share the challenges that we face and what we did right and what we did wrong.
Right, 100%. And I think that's like the old Jedi, master to student mentality. Like, definitely, I've always learned to come up to people that, such as you, or people that I look up to, with a sense of deference and humbleness. Like, I'm willing to learn, but also, assertiveness. Like, sometimes with people I have to be, like, I am aggressive. Even with mentors, I'm aggressive. Like, if there's someone that I want to connect with, that I see like they're doing things that I want to learn about, I email them a couple times. But also I think there's this sense of too, like, while I'm learning a lot, like, I also feel like I need to start building my confidence that I have a lot of knowledge and skills that are, pretty unique, that I can share up, if that makes sense.
Right, and
like,
I think it's
down.
important. I think that's true, and I think it's important for my generation to listen more, and to try to figure out how the listening and speaking and learning goes both ways, and that that's the most productive relationship, and that's the way more can be learned.
Right. And then also I learned that they say life phases, like when you're a kid, you learn, and then at the end of retirement life, it's almost, that is a really good goal, is the giving back to the next people below you, because you're moving on from the career world. So you're kind of like doing what this natural trend is that when you look back on your whole career, what can I do to impart to the new young people that are just starting their career? Do you feel like that was something that, as you were even actively at the end of your work career, you were actively seeking people, like, wow, that person's just about to start being someone, and you did some unofficial mentoring in the hallway or in the, just at the water cooler, like, just give people tips, and you felt like you were unofficially mentoring people already?
Yeah, I liked doing that all throughout my work life. I mean, there was always younger people, coming of age, and I tried to be, a role model, and I tried to give good advice, and I tried to be able to listen to people and deal with their frustrations and give reactions and be helpful all along. One of the things that you said that I just, is whether or not, you learn when you're young, and then when you're old, you stop learning. I don't feel that. I feel like I'm learning new things all the time.
Right.
And taking a course was interesting, and I want to take more of those. It's just that the learning is not in the work context. The learning is just an interesting learning for and of itself, and it may, I may get into something that I get especially, interested in and become more, obsessed with, and more focus more on. We have a new hobby, or I don't really have any hobbies, and so I did take a dozen guitar lessons in my effort to try to learn guitar, until I figured out that my brain and my fingers did not collaborate as well as they may have 40 years ago. But I hope to still learn things and to put them to use in everyday life, just not in the work context.
I love that. And I definitely say you're a musical family. Obviously Katie got the music gene. Maggie got it too, a little bit. Like y'all are definitely a clappy, dancey, musical family. It's like it's in there. So I mean,
I like to do more. I like to do more with music, and I like to do. I'm going to try to focus on some volunteering where I feel it's interesting to me and I can be of use.
Yeah.
I just, there's a couple of things that I'm interested in that I'm pursuing, and I'll see how that goes. But I like to try to figure out other things that would be, that I would enjoy and be helpful, and do more with my wife Joan, and try. She's still working, but try to figure out how to use the time to explore family growth, and I hope that'll work out well.
So, I'm always, no, that was a real spike. I had to pull that back. But I'm always about, I like lists or bullet points and stuff. If you can think of 2 or 3 things that you would tell yourself upon retirement that you are now, well, like, for instance, if there was 2 or 3 things that you were really anxious about, like, like write a letter to yourself, what you've learned in 6 months, what would be 2 or 3 things you would tell your about to retired self that you're doing now? Like,
first would be it's okay to take naps.
Okay.
So that's really good. Naps are an important element of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think learning in some form is really important, so that you're stimulated to be interested in something, learn something about it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of enjoy that aspect. So that can be from reading, that can be from taking a course, that can be from being part of a new organization, going to lectures, things like that. But I think trying to keep your mind active and trying to find things that are interesting to you, kind of the aha moments that, it may not matter that I'm not going to use that in some way, but it's just interesting in and of itself. So I like to do more of that. I'd also like to try to figure out how to stay part of the progressive community.
Yes.
In a way that is meaningful to me and of some use to the community. I think there is a lot of ageism involved, and it's part of the progressive community as where anywhere else where, out of sight, out of mind,
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I may have something to say at age 70 may not mean much to somebody who's 35. And that's just the way the world works. But I'd like to try to figure out a way where I might be helpful in some kind of meaningful social development context.
You said something very, very. You said a term that is relatively new to me, but I've been reading articles, or I subscribe to this blog called Curiosity, and they send you a couple of different articles. I'll send it to you because it'll be Curiosity. You sign up for the thing, and they have just random articles for learning. But one of them was this new age, not new age, but this real thinking about ageism, a real concrete ism about discrimination or discrimination toward people toward their age in a matter of their abilities and their cognitive abilities and their impact. And sometimes it's even self-imposed, like, racism, like you start internalizing that you're less than because of racism, like because I'm black I'm not smart or something like that, because you hear these overall messages subliminally. In regards to ageism, which I totally think now I know exists, what would you tell to young people like me to help them be, they say like allies for certain groups, like if you're allied to black people, like you advocate for black people, you're allied to LGBTQ, you like don't let people, bully your gay and lesbian friends. What are some things that you would tell to a ageism or age ally or something like that? I don't know what the term is.
It's
like, what would you do to say to a young person, like, these are some things and some behaviors that you can do to end, not end it, but to curb that discrimination and also help someone experiencing ageism?
Well, I don't know exactly. I think the main message is not everybody who is age 70 is the same, or
Mm-hmm.
age 80 or 85 or 90. So try to look at people individually for what
Mm-hmm.
they are and can do and what they have to say, rather than presume because they're old they don't have anything to say.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it is true that as you age, you do develop some levels of disability, as you move on, it may be how quickly you move. It may be your eyesight. It may be your hearing. It may, and that makes you less accessible to people, and it may take more patience for somebody younger to get from an older person what that person may have to offer, and that that is worth thinking about. I think we'll see in this presidential campaign, as millennial generation, which is now among the biggest voting bloc in the country.
Oh, they're the biggest voting bloc now.
Yeah. So when you look at Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or even Elizabeth Warren and others who are older, whether or not people are going to feel they can vote for them or they're just too old. Yeah. And I'm concerned about that. In two ways. One is 76 is pretty old. Yes. Trump is 74. He just seems incompetent for other reasons. But
yeah.
I'm a little troubled as somebody who's older to think, well, is Joe Biden at the top of his game to be president? And we'll have to see that. And again, I don't know him well enough to be able to judge. But it may be hard for a lot of millennials to vote for somebody who is so much older, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
Well, I think some of the things that you said, and I'll go back to. I definitely think you brought up some good points about, even skepticism about age people based on their age. But one of the things I heard that I will go back to the ally part is that definitely is similar to all the main things is like don't lump all black people the same. So don't lump all older people the same. Meet the individual where they are. Meet all individual black people where they are. So it's a lot of the same skills about any ally thing is meeting people at the individual level and not assuming and treating everyone, and right. Taking it for what it worth.
But a lot just with racism, there's this, there's people talk a lot about there being this subconscious racism that people have that gets in the way of their understanding or looking at people or evaluating people. There's also that when it comes to age too. People will just assume that somebody who is retired is out of it or doesn't really have much to offer or doesn't really understand how we do things today or makes assumptions that may or may not be true.
Right.
And it takes a little bit more patience and a little bit more curiosity to see what that older person may or may not have to offer.
Excellent. And I think that's all about skills, empathy, and meeting people where they are, and patience, and just having conversations and empathy. But I'm going to jump back. I think a lot of what you said in regards to high positions of power and just kind of like a skepticism of people that are very older. Some of my things is that one of the things I agree with you. When we see an older candidate or maybe a super old boss, let's say like the president of a university is 70-something years old, I feel like he's disconnected. Like, what does a 77-year-old know about students' needs? Let's just say a college campus, right? And we have a president who obviously their role is a lot about finance and money and donors and all that stuff. But they are at an institution for young people and so when there's probably student life issues, dorm issues and all that stuff, I would probably be a little skeptical to say, what would this person know about the student experience? He's so far disconnected from it. And I think that might be relatively the same for a very, very old candidate of any election in a national country. Like, does this candidate still really have a pulse to what's going on in the country? Does this candidate have really a pulse on issues that are not related to the group that is similar to them? For instance, like they might, know about a lot more about Social Security and retirement and money, but do they know about, relationship violence or something? I don't know. I'm just trying to allude to something that they're not really doing as much. They're not dating. They're not, I don't know, like starting jobs and wage equality because they don't have to work, I don't, you know what I'm saying? So
right, but I think we talked about trade-offs. This is a trade-off too, so that a candidate who has been in public office or had headed up a corporation or had various jobs will have some knowledge and perspective and information that you as a 35-year-old won't have.
Right.
And so there is that element that president of the university who's been around knows a lot more about a lot more things that you may know, but may not know some of the things you know. So the important thing is that they have around them people who they trust and people who give them the straight poop on what's going on. But it's just that there is some truth to the fact that if you've been around for a long time, you have and you're a curious, competent, smart, educable person, that you pick up stuff that is valuable, that you'll use in some way that you didn't have when you were 30 years younger. But at the same time, what you're saying is true, is that you can't pretend to know what it's like to be 35 when you're 70.
Yes.
So it's all a matter of trade-offs and trying to understand that there's advantages and disadvantages to being young and to be old.
Yeah, and I think also another thing too that you said that was definitely then whatever the role is, surround yourself with a diverse team with different experiences and different perspectives to help you kind of stay plugged in. So like,
diverse in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
we're talking about age here, but that's also true for women and for people who are dealing with gender issues and people who are are dealing with racism or
that's what I meant too.
A lot of diversity.
I meant like if, let's say for instance Joe Biden wins, I think it would be in his benefit to have women or men of color or people of color and someone maybe that's in the LGBT community or different religions around him. I think that all different types of people brings perspectives. There shouldn't be no monotone administration,
right?
At any
but
level.
the young and old is one dynamic.
Yeah, I think
of
that's
that,
too. That should be.
But
one
only
dynamic.
many dynamics. I mean, an older black man is gonna have perspectives on life that an older white man's not gonna have, or a younger white or a younger black man's not gonna have.
Yes.
So it really is. It's hard to make broad judgments about what various people know. I think it always comes down to individuals, and individuals have their own competencies, and they may be based on experience, it may be based on how smart they are, it may be based on what their life's been like. Right. And I think it's important that we try to figure out, how individuals fare, and try to evaluate people on the basis of what they have to offer, and be patient and be open to that.
Yeah. So, we're going to cut this early, not too early, because, my big boss told me I got to wrap it up. But I definitely want to do a part 3, keep on doing parts. I'm just going to call it meaningful work, even though we probably talked a little bit less about work this time. And we talked about ageism. But for this episode, every episode I do a shot for shot. I don't know if you heard that news. It's a new segment I did since our last episode together where I get to ask you a random question. You get to ask me a random question, anything you want, and we just answer it. Do you want to go first? I go first.
You can go first.
All right. So you're in retirement mode, and I love watching you travel the world. Since retiring, you've gone to Spain, correct? Spain.
Yeah.
Is there? If you can give me a list of 5 new international places that you'd like to go, that's my question.
Well, I wouldn't say just international, because I just say 5 places.
Because you don't want to just go around, boring place in America. You want to go. You don't say all places.
Well, I don't think there are non-boring places in America. So I think actually the first 2 places I'm interested in would be Alaska. It's the only state I've never been to, and people just talk about how beautiful it
Hold
is.
Up.
So
you've been to all 49 states so far.
Right, and Puerto Rico and St. Thomas. I've never been to Guam.
Wow, but you've been to all of them except for once. You need that, you got knocked that off the checklist.
I know, I do.
Okay.
And then the other thing I like to do, I've had the pleasure of going to some of the national parks in Arizona, Utah. I would like to do more of that with Joan and with other people, and that is just beautiful. And I find that mountains and just grab me in ways that other things don't. I can see the prettiest thing in some city, but a mountain and a river is just, the nature, the oldness of it just grabs me. So I would also be interested in. I've never been to South America. So I would be interested in Argentina and Chile and Costa Rica and other places there. So I'm interested in South America. I think that there are places in Italy, in northern Italy, I've never been, that I would be open to going to. And I wouldn't mind. My wife is Irish. She really feels like Irish. I would be happy to go back to Ireland. And then there are a lot of other places. If somebody invited me, I'd be happy to go.
That's dope. And I know that you do a lot of the traveling with organizations that are structured rather than not.
Tours.
Tours. What's the name of that company?
Well, I've been doing these Rick Steves tours.
Yeah,
Rick Steves is a prominent European writer and tour operator.
And you've been doing this, that's pretty organized. Dang, I can't believe you've been to all 49 states.
Well, I'm old, and I had a work life that I did a lot of traveling.
Yeah, and you stayed there, not just drove through. I mean, you actually stayed.
Yeah. So I've been in all the states for some function.
Yeah, function more than a 24-hour period, or you got to lay your head down in there.
Yeah, well, at least I got to drive through it or experience it in some way.
Yeah, because I have an app,
not just an airport.
Yes, I was about to say I have an app called Ben. It's an app where you kind of keep track of the states, and so far I've only been to 50% of the United States.
Oh, well, you got time.
There's a big area like Montana. I've never been to Montana. Have you been? And obviously you've been.
Yeah. Well, I've been a lot of time in Montana, and you have time.
And then, additionally to your question, you said national parks. You been to Yellowstone?
I've never been to Yellowstone. No.
So that's one of the national parks. So you got a couple of them.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. Ask me a random question.
So I just wonder how do you feel about these podcasts? How do you are you happy with them? Are you feeling like you're getting feedback to them? Are you glad you're doing them? Or how do you feel about it?
Well, obviously this is coming out in the future. We're recording this in July, but this
on the 4th of July.
4th of July. Shout out to America, but this will be released sometime in the fall. I took a break from the podcast, not because I was not feeling it or didn't like it anymore. I wanted to get better. So I've used this time to read a little bit more about podcasts, listen to videos, learn some new techniques. And
get new equipment,
and also just learn, how to record a bunch of episodes and set them to release, so I don't have to do it so much when time gets really busy. This is the summer, so I felt like I'd use this summer to catch up, and then when it's really the fall, I have all these episodes ready to go, and I can focus really on my work, which is more important during the fall. But I really feel like it's good. It's made so far within these 3 years. I started in 2017. I think I started in 2017. I'm not sure.
Well, I was number 15, and I was in September 2017.
Yeah. So it was 2017 though, but it was
not that I'm feeling sensitive about being number 15.
You're top 20 though. Top 20. It was April 2017. So I think right now I'm past the 2-year mark, and this is my 2 to 3 year. This is the most confident I felt about it. It took time. I've met some really cool people through the podcasting community. There's a lot of communities for everything, right? You go to the gym, there's a gym community. So I've met some new people in this community. It's helped me connect better at work. It's helped me connect better with people that are studying well-being and positivity. So quite honestly, I think this is the best. I think I only see the podcast getting better.
That's great. Good.
And I see it more like it's helped me sharpen my skills. One of the things I want to learn how to do is be a better public speaker. And while this is not a real stage, it's helped me be more comfortable about having conversations. And then also, additionally, someone told me that I'm a really good podcaster because of my interviews, but I think I didn't realize that the skills I've learned from my counseling program and asking questions and listening has come into this podcast. So I don't know. I think I don't view podcasting as a job for me, because it's not. My real job is my real job. I feel like podcasting for me is a hobby that helps strengthen my skills and other things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, it's my public speaking practice. Podcasting is my interview skills practice. Right. It's practice. Right. And so I feel like I'm finally getting a part where it's a good practice. I feel like I'm getting stronger. I'm not a pro. I'm like an amateur, I'll always probably be an amateur. I'm not a professional podcaster.
That's because you're so young. If young people don't have the skills that old people have. We know that. So
yeah. So we did a good job. We got a good episode here. We got 40 minutes. We got 5 minutes left. My wife said we were on a new timer for this episode. Shout out to her. We got to wrap it up. But so this is the end of the episode. We did the random questions. We did the shot for shot. Now the stage is yours, Jeff. This is what the avenue, or not the avenue. This is the segment of the show I call shout outs and plugs, meaning any ventures or any things, side hustles, whatever you want to shout out or plug to, and then shout outs are just anyone that you want to show some love to, that you want, when you say shout outs, I'll send them this episode that they know they've been shouted out. So the stage is yours. Shout outs and plugs. And then plugs is also how, if you are comfortable, how you would like people to reach you that listen to this podcast. That's the plug part.
Well, if people can reach me through you, that's probably the easiest way to do it. I guess the only thing I'd say, thinking about the mentorship stuff, is that I think there's a lot of value to mentorship relationships, both in terms of what younger people can get from relationships with older people. It doesn't have to be older people like me. It could be somebody who's, one generation older, or, 10 or 15 years older, or just in a different job that they will hope to get down in the future. But I think, people should look for those relationships and try to be open to those relationships, and not and not have the firmest expectations of what they're going to get from it. I think that building a relationship like that has its own benefits in and of itself, in terms of meeting a new person and having a new friend, having a new person to learn from. But I think that there is a lot of benefit to that, and I think older people don't try very hard to reach out to younger people. Younger people don't try very hard to reach out to older people. And I think that people are missing out on that. And I would advise people to try to think about that, and think about how they might be able to use that to learn, engage, meet a new person, have a new friend, get ahead.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to end the episode. Find a mentor. As I said, you've been a mentor to me. I ask you lots of, I don't randomly ask you questions, but I know that I can come to you when I need some advice and some things I don't think about. I always say a lot when I talk to you, I'm like, dang, I didn't think of that at all. And then you're like, okay, and that's a good idea. So definitely shout out to you, and I definitely appreciate your mentorship to me over time. That's it. That's the podcast. As Jeff said earlier, if you're interested in mentorship or anything, come through me. I'll introduce you, I guess. And you know where to find the podcast is Positive Filter on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's Positive Filter. With a filter is the PH instead of an F. Play on my name. And if you have any questions for the podcast, you can leave them to me. Or you can also just call the voicemail number, which is 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you. And we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.